Hello and welcome again to another Filmcast Without a Cause, back from my sick bed. I'm Jacob Rosdale.
And I'm Patrick Boberg. Nice to have you back, Jacob.
Thank you very much. It's great to be back. I want to thank Dan and Jordan for covering for me, and you for doing such a good job.
I talked about on all the social mediums that it was 3 trolls reviewing The Hobbit, just 3 guys in a basement yakking away.
I like to think of it as our own FWOC fellowship, and I think
Nice.
It should gather every time there is a Tolkien film to be discussed.
Anytime there's a quest, we need to have a fellowship or a consortium or a quorum of some type.
They did a great job. They were actually more qualified than I was to review The Hobbit.
But you read The Hobbit.
I did in like 4th grade or whatever. I was talking with my wife who had also read it at a young age, and we barely remembered things, but both Dan and Jordan seemed like they had a good grasp on the source material. So I'm really glad they covered for me last week. I was able to see The Hobbit, and I did see it in high frame rate 3D. And that's our first story for the week. Actually, is that it seems that the HFR 3D averaged of The Hobbit the highest per screen average of the different formats. It's the one that made the most money per screening. And I don't know if we really got into the high frame rate 3D.
Not
at all
so
on the
much. We
podcast.
didn't talk about very much.
Well, basically, Peter Jackson, when filming this, he shot it in digital video with the red camera, 2 red cameras to make it stereoscopic, and he shot it at 48 frames per second, where the typical film is shot at 24 frames per second. And our eyes, I'm getting really rudimentary. I'm just going to dumb it down because that's how I can understand it. Our eyes understand motion at 24 frames per second, but it can also, like at 48 frames per second, it starts to look closer to reality.
Like someone
theory.
in the room.
Exactly, and it is closer to video. And actually, to give my opinion on what the high frame rate 3D looked like, it did look like video, or it looked like if you ever see those TVs that do the motion smoothing.
Yeah.
And it's very distracting. It makes like a nice film look like it was shot, in the 80s, on 80s BBC television or whatever. It looked like that for like the 2.5 hour running time. And
I've heard that called the soap opera effect. I briefly mentioned it, but because they shoot a lot of soap operas now in like the BBC fashion on digital tape, and it's 60i instead of 24p, and it just looks a little more smooth, as we've been saying. But I remember the first time I ever saw that Blu-ray soap opera effect was the original Iron Man in a Best Buy store, and I hated it.
Yeah.
And I didn't see an HFR, but did you hate it?
I didn't hate it. I knew I was going to see it in high frame rate 3D because it was the director's intention. It was an attempt to move the language of film forward or whatever. So I was like, if I have the opportunity, I'm going to see it in high frame rate 3D and see if this does fix a lot of the problems with 3D. You know how when there's sudden motion in 3D, sometimes it interlaces or strobes or a little bit. I thought maybe this will fix that. And on the other hand, it did still, every time it moved, there was a weird motion, and it did look sped up because it's different than what we're looking at film. I remember in your review with Jordan, he was talking about how maybe the extra motion could help him follow the action better. But I think it was actually the opposite. There's a scene where the wolves are chasing this guy on a rabbit sled or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was so hard to follow in 3D. It made me seasick looking at it.
Interesting. Is that because a lot of people say that with 3D you're forced to look at the certain area, otherwise you might hurt your eyes or whatever because you're looking at it as part of the screen that you're not supposed to. And then if you're watching it in 2D, you just do that naturally without even thinking about it. I mean, and you can sometimes look around and look at other places, and it's in focus, just maybe not crystal clear. Then of course in HFR, everything is perfectly clear and you can see the makeup. Is that part of why it was hard to watch those
I think
scenes?
a little bit. And there was no, film just looks better than real life because there's shallow depth of field. The lighting, looks better in 2 dimensions. But when you have 3D, all the lighting looked flat. And you could see all the way down the Hobbit hole. It looked like you were looking out a window. And it just doesn't look as good as, I think, 2D film. And I was with my in-laws shopping for televisions this weekend, and the Best Buy guy was selling them on higher frame rates. It'll make the picture look better, and I just had to walk away. And I'm like, I'll tell them later not to.
You didn't butt in and say, no!
I'm not going to argue with the Best Buy salesperson, but...
Because they know all. They're Best Buy, right?
Exactly, and they don't work on commission. They keep telling you that. But I do not think it's the future of film, even if Warner Brothers isn't providing a breakdown for the high frame rate. Like, to say, they're not promoting it yet as it's a huge hit, or they're going to do all their films this way yet. But I'm really kind of hoping, unless the technology gets a little better, that the future doesn't go this way. Because I don't like my movies to look like video. I don't like it to look like real life. I did need to see it, and I was going in with an open mind, saying maybe this is the future, and I could say I saw the first high frame rate 3D film. But after saying that, I'm hoping they don't start. I was like, well, one thing is they can't post convert these like they were doing 3D, but then I'm like, oh wait, they do it with motion smoothing television, so maybe it's just as an easy process, and then we'll start seeing all these post converted high frame rate movies or whatever. But
my original intent was to see it in HFR, but the cost, obviously, of a ticket price almost dissuaded me a little bit. And just being burned by 3D in the past, and the people I was seeing it with as well didn't care. So, with seeing it with director's intent in mind, are you glad you saw it that way, or would you have enjoyed it more?
I think I would have, because it was so distracting for the first half an hour. And my wife and I talked, and we were both glad we saw it in high frame rate 3D, so we can say, yeah, we saw the new hot new thing or whatever. But when it comes to The Hobbit Part 2 and Part 3, we're going to see them like we saw the original Lord of the Rings movies. We're going to see them in 2D, regular frame rate, 24 frames per second.
Take that, Peter Jackson.
Take that. Well, after getting off my soapbox for a little bit, one of the trailers I saw with The Hobbit, I'm wondering if it was the same for you.
We did not see it. Star Trek Into Darkness
trailer. It did not give you the trailer. Oh, that's so sad. Did you get Pacific Rim?
Yes, we did.
I didn't get that one.
Oh.
So there's a balance to the world. And I still haven't seen the Pacific Rim trailer.
Well, I think I'm going into the Star Trek movie with only seeing the trailer once. So okay. I'm glad I didn't see it again.
Okay, cool. Well, I think the trailer was pretty excellent. But that's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how... And this is something I think J.J. Abrams has done and Bad Robot Productions has done. They've started the viral campaign early and often. And I guess if you go through the trailer frame by frame, there is a URL for a RU, the 1701.
The USS Enterprise 1701.
Yes, exactly. That's the call sign for the Enterprise. And if you go to the site, all it does is ask for your email address. And then it says it will keep you updated. It doesn't explain what the site is or anything like that. I entered my name, and they have my information now. So
if we have a breaking news update for FWOC, Jacob will butt in and say, I got an email.
I got an email, so I'll hit the Twitter. But what I wanted to ask you, Pat, is do you think who is this viral campaign for? If it's for someone who went frame by frame in the trailer to look for clues, aren't they probably obsessive enough that they're going to see the movie anyway?
See, that was my initial thought, but now right as you're saying this, I'm thinking it's a way to definitely get the super fan to be hyped as hell for the film, you know? I mean, that's easy enough. But those people are the people who really sell the movie to other people. Because if you don't have the fanboys on board, you could have a serious Green Hornet action happen where nobody wants to see the film because even the uber nerds don't want to see the film. Another way to look at it, of course, is like Prometheus. It was a way to show things that aren't necessarily going to be in the movie, like the TED Talk from
the Wayland.
Wayland, yes, he had a TED Talk that was a viral video that was not in the movie. I don't think it's on the Blu-ray when I rented it, but
it is on the Blu-ray.
Oh, well, then never mind.
Maybe not on the rental Blu-ray.
But it's definitely just a way to kind of maybe hash out everything else that's in there and get people super connected, and then have those people who are already your advocates become your super advocates.
But what I'm reminded of is how the internet is the loudest film community, but not necessarily the most powerful or the biggest, or that I'm thinking the Scott Pilgrim effect, where the buzz for that was so huge online, and they went to Comic-Con, and it was like the hit of Comic-Con, and everyone was talking about Scott Pilgrim, and it underperforms at the box office. This happens, I think, again and again with some of these genre films. So I actually like viral marketing. I like Abrams' little mysteries and stuff, but I wonder if it's really going to add to the back end. I do think Star Trek Into Darkness, based on how cool that trailer is and how good the first movie is, I do think it has potential to be one of the biggest hits of 2013. I don't know how much this viral campaign will be a factor in that.
It might just be a way to push a film's box office from, say, 600 million to $1 billion. Just to get people so amped up that maybe they'll this is my own personal bias, but they'll overlook like a bad movie like The Dark Knight Rises and just see it again and again because of, oh my goodness, I've been, pushed to the point of exploding with my urges, through these vow campaigns or whatever.
That said, I do hope the end game for the campaign is more Prometheus than, say, when it was, I don't want the first look of Bane or whatever, like they did with the Dark Knight Rises campaign. I just don't want to go to a website and get a bunch of chanting. I want some additional backstory.
Well, it might also just be a way for to do what J.J. Abrams likes to do, like Super 8. Nobody even knew that movie was being made until there was that little teaser trailer with the train crash. Yeah. Whereas everybody knows Star Trek Into Darkness is being made, and they're hunting for all the little secrets. This is maybe just a way to keep them off the path.
Yeah, misdirection. Anti-con direction.
Viral marketing, anti-viral marketing.
We'll talk about that more in 2013, I'm sure. Another film that's way beyond 2013, transitioning into another big sci-fi world. The Wachowskis this year brought us Cloud Atlas, a film quite divisive among the film community. But they already are, I think it was kind of a box office flop, Cloud Atlas. But they're already gearing up their next film, which is going to be called
Jupiter Rising?
Jupiter Ascending.
Ascending, I'm sorry.
For Warner Brothers. So the studio that helped fund Cloud Atlas and funded Speed Racer and the Matrix movies is still in their corner, thankfully. I do think the Wachowskis are very talented, so I'm glad they're continuing to make movies, especially big, ambitious sci-fi movies. And maybe this one will be more accessible than Cloud Atlas. All we know so far is that the story is set in a time where humans are at the bottom of the evolutionary ladder, and it follows a woman who has been targeted for assassination by the Queen of the Universe. Yeah. And
hearing that, it almost sounds like it could be a sequel to like The Fifth Element.
Oh, no.
Or something, I like The Fifth Element. Are you saying you don't?
I haven't seen it since, whenever it came out.
It's fun.
Is
I'll
it?
just leave
Okay.
it at that. But I don't think it'll definitely not be a comedy, just knowing the way they make their movies. But that sounds like maybe the best B movie ever described in one sentence. I hope it's more than that, but at the same time, you could say probably the same thing if you heard the tagline for The Matrix.
Sure.
So, a man who's been trapped in a machine his whole life wakes up.
Well, hopefully it is like a crowd-pleasing, high-minded sci-fi movie, because I think their reputations, I mean, obviously there's the Matrix sequels that pretty much no one likes, and I like Speed Racer quite a bit, and I like Cloud Atlas, but they were both huge financial disasters. So, but they're artists I really respect. So I hope Jupiter Ascending is a.
Well, I would imagine the reason that Warner Brothers is sticking with them is just on the hope that they make something that could be just a smash, amazing, out of nowhere hit like The Matrix was, and then they've got another giant tank of cash rolled up to their door, and spin-offs and comic books and animated shows and everything else that comes along with success.
One of the reasons that Jupiter Ascending made it into Variety this week was because they announced that Eddie Redmayne was going to be cast in this film. Eddie Redmayne is an actor I have not seen in anything yet because I have not seen My Week with Marilyn, and I've yet to see Les Miserables, which I believe he is apparently one of the standouts in, one of the better voices in that movie. But he was also attached. We have to talk about we already kind of talked about superheroes a little bit, but every week we do have to mention superheroes a little bit. He was one of the people in talks to play Starlord in the upcoming Guardians of the Galaxy film. And that, Pat, have you read any Guardians of the Galaxy yet?
Just the book that you see right over there, the Thetis Imperative and War of the Worlds, where... I'm not sure where that book is. We're in our basement. Jacob's actually in person here. We're not in North Carolina, Iowa. The holidays have allowed it. But yes. But why do you ask?
Well, I just didn't know if you knew anything yet about the Star-Lord character.
He's kind of like if Spider-Man wasn't like annoying. He was more of like a, gunslinger, So
okay, so an everyman.
Everyman with some snark. He's kind of like the internet embowed in a human body.
I think it is safe to say, though, that he is not an A-list character, even if he is the star.
That's where you're going.
That's not where I was going. I wanted to know a little bit more about him because I haven't read a lot of these Guardians of the Galaxy comics. But I think Marvel is taking a chance with the casting of this character by I guess they haven't really cast any A-list stars yet in their films. but they make
Robert Downey.
That made him an A-list
Yeah,
star.
they brought him back to life.
Exactly.
That's
So they like to make stars.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think I should just name some of the other names that they've been considering. Eddie Redmayne, who doesn't look like he's going to do it because of Jupiter Ascending. They were also looking at Lee Pace, who I know as the star of Pushing Daisies, the short-lived show on ABC. He was also in Lincoln. And I guess he's in the new Twilight film, and there's been lots of jokes about whether he was the same character in Twilight as in Lincoln. But that's digressing quite a bit. And apparently it is down to 2 people for the Starlord role. Down to Jim Sturgis, who is from the film 21, which I haven't seen, and Across the Universe, which I have seen, and Zachary Levi of Chuck fame.
Which I saw up until the last 4 episodes. I had to cut.
You never saw how it ended?
I was just too upset with where it went. But Zachary Levi, this almost makes me think of when they almost cast John Krasinski as Captain America, and everyone on the internet lost their mind and about how they thought that was a bad move. But
I still think about that, how that would have played out.
I just don't know about Zachary Levi as if you've watched Chuck or if you've seen Tangled, he definitely likes to do his little jokey, he's a comedic actor. At least that's how he's portrayed. Similar to John Krasinski, it's hard to take him serious in serious roles. But I thought this sounded like they were going to go comic, like a comedy. Do you think they're not going?
I think
straight up action movie.
I think they're going to have to go funny because James Gunn is a person who inserts, the director James Gunn, who also did the film Super and Slither. He's a guy who inserts comedy into his films anyway. And this is a film that has a talking raccoon in it. And it sounds like from what you mentioned, he's kind of a wisecracking Han Solo type.
That is probably exactly where they went because he's the only one in the whole thing, the whole universe that doesn't have any superpowers.
Zachary Levi is going to be in Thor: Dark World. I didn't know if you knew that.
I heard that.
He is replacing.
Oh, he's replacing
Josh Lucas, or not Josh Lucas. The guy who's in Once Upon a Time, who played Fandral. I guess Zachary Levi was cast originally and then had to quit because of Chuck. And now this other guy has a TV series, whatever. But my theory is that maybe Guardians of the Galaxy is secretly a musical because you mentioned Tangled. So we know Levi can sing. Jim Sturgis, Across the Universe, can sing. Lee Pace has a background in theater, can sing. Eddie Redmayne, Les Mis can sing. So that's the secret.
If Marvel wants to burn down all of their goodwill and all of their momentum and completely ruin Phase 2 of their universe, they will make it a musical.
Well, if Starlord breaks out in the song, people will be saying, "Oh, Jacob was right."
And if Thanos has this very low and brooding bad guy song.
That said, it sounds like it's going to be between Sturgis and Levi. I was probably rooting, and I was in the Lee Pace camp. I was rooting for that guy. But you're not for Chuck? You don't think Chuck should get the role? Or
I don't know. Zachary Levi. I used to be a fan, but somewhere along the lines he lost me. I think I'm more in the Sturgis camp now.
All right, great. Well, we don't have a film to review this week, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the best films of last year.
2011.
All right, keep listening.
Hey, are you awake? Yeah, I'm right here. What can I ask you?
New on DVD this week, a lot of movies came out on Friday, December 21st, just in time, get under the wire for that last-minute Christmas shopping, including a couple films we've talked about on the show, one of them being Arbitrage, Killer Joe, which is not a film to buy your grandmother. I don't care how much of a Matthew McConaughey fan she is.
Is this a Summer of Sam style, don't watch it with your parents movie?
Definitely. Don't watch it with anyone. Watch by yourself.
Interesting. Now I'm even more intrigued.
It is a good, I do think it is a good movie. It's just really, the ending of it is quite disturbing. And you have to know yourself pretty well to even go watch it, let alone, I wouldn't watch it with my spouse or... Maybe I'd watch it with you.
This is a future segment where we discuss films you don't watch with anyone.
Yeah,
because I've got all these memories popping up where I hate movies for doing that. But thank you for the warning.
But Killer Joe, I do think it's a good noirish Southern fried. I think that's actually how they sold it, a Southern fried thriller. Premium Rush, one of your favorite films from this summer.
Yep. Definitely overlooked. Check that out. Especially for $1. How cheap is that?
Exactly. Red Hook Summer is the newest from Spike Lee. Very mixed things I've heard about that one. And
What's that about?
I think it's about a preacher in...
How come I heard nothing about this movie?
because it got so, such a cold reception. You may have heard Spike Lee reprise his role of Mookie, Do the Right Thing. He reprises his character from Do the Right Thing.
Oh, okay.
But apparently the performances, like the main performance of the preacher in Red Hook Summer, is excellent, but it's really long. It's really self-indulgently, from what I've heard. But I am a Spike Lee fan, so I probably will check it out eventually. But if it's anything like... I remember hyping myself up for Miracle at St. Anna, thinking Spike Lee doing a World War II film, and that film is so disappointing and pretentious that I can't say I'm looking forward to Red Hook Summer, but I probably will check it out. I am looking forward to it a little bit more than Resident Evil Retribution, a series I never got on board with.
You know, I read somewhere online that this movie is better than Total Recall, which you and I were like, take it or leave it. We didn't pan it by any means. Does that make you want to see Resident Evil, considering the internet is so reliable?
Yeah.
How vast it is.
I don't think so. I think I did see the one before it, but having only seen the first one, and then I think they're at 5 now. So I think I saw the first one and the fourth one, and I was totally lost. And I mean, this must be what people who don't read comic books think of comic book movies when they only reference, things that happened before. And I was so lost, and I thought the effects were so lame that I think I swore off the Resident Evil franchise.
Well, I won't be seeing it because I haven't seen any of them.
And December 24th, Christmas Eve, they put out the film The Words, the Bradley Cooper film, for really last-minute shoppers. Do you even remember The Words?
It's the one where he steals a book.
Yep. That's the one with Zoe Saldana. Pat, we had a blizzard, so you were without power, but did you get to see any movies or do anything fun before?
Well, I did. For our segment that about to come up for the best of 2011, there were a couple films I had to sneak in there, so
Okay.
I really didn't have too much time to watch anything outside of that. I watched The Artist, which I will just to get really ahead of the time. I actually didn't put it in my top 10, but
Okay.
I did enjoy it. It was very enjoyable. And some people were saying the dog was the star of the movie. Those people must be dog lovers beyond compare, because it just seemed like a dog in a film. But I really liked it, and makes me want to see some silent movies. And that might be the main reason for watching that film.
Yeah, true. I did mention earlier in the show that I did catch up with The Hobbit. I was hung up on the frame rate stuff, so I didn't talk about what I actually thought of the movie. I actually agreed with you guys on the podcast. I thought it was a decent enough film. I really liked the second half of the movie when actually the adventure got started. The first half, there was too much sitting around and singing, I thought. And even in high frame rate 3D, people tossing around plates is not exciting to watch.
It was interesting that he takes and chooses parts from books, and maybe people seem to be on board with his choices. But I can't believe that him and his wife, who helps him write the films, that they did the whole "this happened 60 years ago." Why not make when the dwarf castle got melted down by the dragon? Why didn't that happen a week before? So there's an immediate need to go back and why do we care that it's 60 years later?
Yeah, I guess
That would have made it way more exciting if it starts with them in this dwarf castle. Everything's happy. We're getting to know the dwarves. We don't need to be told he's rich and loves jewels. They just happen to be rich and love jewels. And then suddenly, bam! Here comes this dragon, and then you're invested instead of I'm an old Bilbo telling this story through a letter.
Those are good points. I mean, it does seem very I guess we'll go on an adventure, and I guess we'll bring the Hobbit. The stakes do seem very low in the first half, and then.
That'd be like if all of a sudden you and I decided to go avenge our distant relatives who went to Auschwitz. I mean, I guess it's different because it's a magical place where dwarves live for hundreds of years. I mean, most people who lived in, had to endure Auschwitz are at this point deceased. So it's a different type of situation with humans and mystical beings. But I don't know. It seems like 60 years later, even in a magical world, nobody cared, and the hobbits didn't even know that it happened.
Yeah, wasn't there something like the birds were flying, and so they took it as an omen? Or something I can't remember.
Yeah, the griffins were returning or whatever.
I saw someone make a tweet that every 10th page of the Hobbit script must have been, and then Gandalf saves them. Because that seems to be the beat that happens over and over in the Hobbit. But I do look forward to seeing that in a two-dimensional capacity on a Blu-ray someday, probably when they all come out.
I see you also saw another huge film of this year.
Oh, yeah. Another fantasy film, The Secret World of Arrietty, the latest from Studio Ghibli, a very charming film, just very gentle. Like,
haven't seen
it's
it.
not going to make my top 10 list. And now that Netflix has a deal with Disney, maybe it'll pop up. But it was just very gentle. That's the best word I can think of, because the stakes aren't that high. Maybe they'll get discovered. It's about the borrowers, these little people that live underneath the floor in a house, and they steal sugar cubes and whatnot, and the humans discover them. And it was just, Studio Ghibli it's a very reliable. And I don't watch a lot of anime, but I try and see everything they put out. And Secret World of Arietti is one. There is another movie I saw that I was teasing you about when we were talking earlier.
Oh yes, you weren't going to tell me until this moment. I forgot.
I had a friend over, and my wife and we were all watching television, and we started talking about SNL movies. And Wayne's World came up, and Blues Brothers came up, and my wife did not believe that It's Pat was made into a movie.
I saw her tweeting this, and I was like, why are you watching this film? I should have thought. Oh, I'm sorry.
Now you remember.
I should have remembered this.
And my friend had said, "Oh yeah, I used to watch It's Pat all the time. It's hilarious." And I'm
Never
like,
seen
I
it.
doubt it holds up. And so it was on Amazon Instant. So I rented it. I paid the $2.99 or whatever to watch It's Pat the movie. And there are some funny pieces in It's Pat the movie. It does earn its reputation as one of the worst movies because it does run the same joke over and over and over.
Of boy or girl.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically the sketch. But if you like that sketch, if you remember that from the early 90s, it's worth watching at least the first 10 minutes of It's Pat. It's so lazy in parts, though, where characters like Kathy Griffin, and actually that's the name of Kathy Griffin's character in It's Pat. She plays Kathy Griffin.
Nice.
And Arlene Sorkin's in it, who was the voice of Harley Quinn in the Batman animated series. She plays Arlene Sorkin. And it's really lazy when it comes to the script level. But there is a scene where Pat's neighbor is moving in, and he has this box fan. And Pat goes, "Is that one of your biggest fans?" And then Pat laughs and then falls down the stairs for no good reason. That's the funniest part. And that's the only part I remembered about It's Pat. And watching it and then watching the whole thing through, I'm like, that's still the funniest part, is Pat falling down the stairs and crushing his nuts, or its nuts. But it was walnuts in its pocket.
Oh. Oh, man.
All right.
I never saw that film just because of all the jokes I got of, hey, it's Pat.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, I'm not worried. Whatever. It's just maybe now I'll have to see it and come to peace with. Is it Julia Sweeney who played?
Julie Sweeney, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Also in Pulp Fiction.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, Julie Sweeney. The last thing she did. Well,
Moving from the best film of 1996
whenever the hell that came out. It was it came out because we found out Wayne's World was only the second SNL movie made. It was Blues Brothers and then Wayne's World and then
really?
It's Pat.
I think a lot of people probably think that Animal House might be
and it's not.
SNL, but it's not.
And Three
It's a
Amigos
National
was
Lampoon.
produced by Lorne Michaels, but not a SNL movie.
Well, there you
But,
go.
yeah, as you said, from one of the best films of all time, we're transitioning into talking about the best films of 2011 or last year. Pat, this was kind of your idea. Why don't you explain how this came about?
Well, generally when it comes down to the end of a year and you struggle to put out a list, especially if you live in Iowa,
Yes.
you do not see most of the films that come out in that, well, not most, but most of the top 10 films. Because there's always like a rush of the best films that come out within the last 2 weeks, and they happen to come out in New York and LA and Chicago, and then we get them maybe right before the Oscars hit, and which is now
If we're
February,
lucky,
if
yeah.
we're lucky. And I also thought this would be a fun, different way to do things because over the time of a year, you start to have a different feeling about a film and you want to rewatch it. And my list generally here is, I kind of thought about things that are entertaining, about rewatchability, things that I would recommend. And based on, okay, I really like Tree of Life. It might be the best movie of the year, but I don't tell everybody I see, yeah, you got to check out that film because I know a lot of them are going to turn it off.
Sure. Of course.
So it's on my top 10, but it's in probably an interesting place compared to most top 10s of 2011. What were your thoughts when I said, let's do this list?
Oh, I really liked this idea because, as you mentioned, even though I'm in North Carolina, which is slightly more populous than Iowa and Des Moines, we don't get the big movies until way into the year. And it gets better now that more films are coming on demand. But we're not professional film critics. We don't get to go to screenings for just us. We don't get screeners yet. Hint, hint. If you are a movie studio, by the way, and want to send us screeners, we will talk about your movie. I promise that. But yeah, it fell really behind, and I'm a guy who always makes a top 10 list, but it usually does not get finished until the summer of the year before. Last year I did make a list probably around February, and that is the list I'm sharing. I didn't read.
It's exactly the same.
It is exactly the same. I only had the chance, like looking at the list, there's only like one I've seen since my original viewing in 2011. And there probably is. I probably would have changed it if I wasn't committed to just delivering the list as it was, as a snapshot in time of how I felt in 2011. So I have a slightly different philosophy than you, I suppose, in that regards.
Well, that's fine. There's no hard and fast rules here.
Yeah, exactly.
So I actually kind of forget your films. Did you extend your list beyond that? Because I had to think of all the movies I saw last year, and it's hard, obviously, to make a top 10 list. So there's plenty I left off. But did you extend beyond your 10?
No, I have one like. When I make my list, I usually start with a list of 25, all the movies I see, and as I go throughout the year, I add the film I saw and rank it, and then when I finalize the list, I'm like, I really can't justify having this above this film. I get really inside my mind here.
That's why I made this list, and at first I said, someone's going to hate me for putting out this list and saying this movie is better than, Tree of Life or whatever, for instance, and I just had to go with it. I said enough editing.
That said, my number 10 spot, there are usually better films, I think, than what I put in my number 10, but it's usually my opportunity to spotlight a film I think may have gotten overlooked, or something that just has a special place in my heart, and I can't say it's better or worse than other films, but I wanted to include it in the list. And my number 10 for the year is the film Warrior, which was an MMA film. I don't know, did you see Warrior?
Oh, absolutely, and I really like it. It might show up on my list.
Oh, great.
It might show up at an interesting place.
Oh, interesting. I'm very curious now. It may be. But just two great performances. I don't want to step on your toes, obviously.
No, that's fine.
Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton, of course, Nick Nolte, nominated for an Oscar there. I just think a very, extremely well-made sports film where you're not rooting for one person over another, and you never quite know how it's going to play out. Pat, what's your number 10?
My number... Okay, well, like I said, my list was hard to build because I did the same thing. There were 25 or more. And right away, number 11, which was in my list and I had to push it out, was Drive. I could push it up even higher, but at a certain point, I realized with my criteria, I'm putting that in quotes, no one can see, I can't really recommend this to many people. It's hard to say, watch this with your wife, or you should rent this film, because so many people are probably going to, A, maybe think it's boring, and B, be a little disturbed by some of the content. And it is a great movie, so it's 11. But number 10, Tree of Life.
Okay.
Because it is beautiful, but it's also long. There are parts that the average film goer may not understand and might get upset at, have the whole, I would walk out of the theater or turn this off. That being said, it deserves to be on this list. And if you hate me, you can send us an email at filmcastwoac@gmail.com.
Well, I don't hate you for that. It's certainly a divisive film. My number 9, I wouldn't be surprised if it showed up on your list, is The Descendants, the Alexander Payne film. I won't go into too much. Obviously, George Clooney was nominated for an Oscar for it. I think it's one of his better performances. I think it's a very funny, very charming, very emotional film. I'm a big fan of Alexander Payne, and I think every film he makes stands out in the crowd. And I did think the Hawaii setting and how it wasn't the typical tourist Hawaii we see on sitcoms and whatnot. It made that film interesting, and it was one of the best films of last year, I think.
I would echo that sentiment. My number 9 is Midnight in Paris.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it's on your list. I think some people thought it was maybe too slight or, silly in parts, but it's so charming. And just some of the things that happen where they go back in time, or does he not go back in time, and what happens with him and Marion Cotillard, who I think it's easy to say at this point she's my favorite actress at the moment. And just the similar way that their feelings about life and the past. It was interesting. Everything that happened in modern times I kind of hated, but everything that happened in the past is enough to make it to the top 10, and maybe it pushes it into the entertaining and recommendation, so that's why it's ahead of the Tree of Life.
Okay, I can see that. A lot of people loved that movie. A lot less people loved my number 8, though I do think it's a very good movie. It's Steven Spielberg's War Horse, which I think was just an old-fashioned Hollywood film. Gorgeous looking, and very sentimental at times. I don't know if you were able to see War Horse.
No, I haven't.
But I can see why people would write it off as sentimental Spielberg garbage, but I was really moved by it, and I think I got one over, like, at least last year. I haven't seen it since, and I don't know how it holds on a big screen, but just the scale of it and just how it felt like watching, like they say movies, oh, they don't make them like they used to. I think War Horse is one of those films that could have been made in the 50s or in the very early Technicolor days.
Interesting.
So I was a big fan of War Horse. I even like it, I think, more than this year's Lincoln.
Well, following that with your movie that could be set in any time, I think I picked a movie that might be only set in the time that it came out. Source Code for my number 8. Maybe not a film that's on anyone's top 10 list, but it is actually kind of short. I think it's about 83 minutes long, but it's really taut and interesting. In the very end, when you think that Duncan Jones, who gave you Moon, and quite a bit of a thinker there, and there may not be too much thought going into this, and then the end of this film happens, and it makes you think, wow, I should probably see that again to see how they got to where they're at the very end, and the different things that happen to these characters. But it's probably my most recommended film of the year.
Yeah, it's a great sci-fi film.
Maybe not Warrior might be more recommended.
Okay.
It's my favorite time travel, once again in quotes,
Source
film of
Code,
the last couple of years.
Source Code actually had my number 10 slot with that special, spot in my heart, and then I saw Warrior, and I was like, I just like this movie was so much, I just really got into this film so much I have to bump something, and unfortunately Source Code was a victim of that. My number 7, I'll go through it quickly, was The Tree of Life, also kind of low on my list. But I like Terrence Malick quite a bit, but I didn't love Tree of Life. I admired it more than I didn't have quite the visceral reaction in my heart or in the theater seat that I had with some of these other movies. So I just couldn't rank it as high, even though I think it is probably the most ambitious film of 2011 that I saw.
This is an interesting time in your list where you start to think everything below people might think is bad. But, if you see maybe somewhere between 60 and 100 films or more in a year, the top 10 is really hard to just say these might all be number 1 at some point. Or, they're basically all, you should see these movies. Mm-hmm. You're going to see 10 films from a year. So my number 7 is Take Shelter. Oh, and wow. I think this is on your list, so I won't go into too much detail. But this is just a really good film and a great way to show a film that doesn't use dialogue but doesn't get too artsy and hints at something that is completely out of the genre you think you're seeing. And that I don't know. I think I'll leave it up to you if it is on your list. But I really like that movie, and that's one of the few choices that I don't think people can argue with being at number 7. Okay. Not Tree of Life at number 10.
My number 6 is a film I haven't revisited, but I remember really thinking it was a cool film. It's 13 Assassins, the film by Takashi Miike. A samurai film, very much in the kind of the Seven Samurai, Magnificent Seven vein, where a group of samurai is gathered to avenge a kind of like Unforgiven, a woman who was treated poorly. Just a very violent film, but also very cool and very action oriented, and also had a lot of the themes that are in samurai films about honor and death and what will you die for. It's just a really cool film if you haven't seen 13 Assassins. I think the director actually had a film come out this year too that was another samurai film called Harikiri, which I haven't seen yet, but I look forward to that.
Fully endorse that pick. But my number 6, Attack the Block.
Oh, that's a good movie.
And some people thought this movie was a little too, flip to be, something that great. But for a first outing from writer-director Joe Cornish, it's really good. And many of the people in this film are not actors. A lot of the kids, it was their first time being in a movie. And the main character, I have it up here, I guess he's the main character. He plays Moses is his name. Mm-hmm. John Boyega, he was his first time acting. I think they just kind of picked him because he looked kind of stark, like he could carry the weight. I think it's really fun. Nick Frost is in it as well, of course. And this is probably, if Source Code's my number 1 most recommended, this is my number 2. And sometimes you might need to be a little bit of a nerd to enjoy it. It's like the furry Muppet style monsters. Yeah. That I don't think that's giving anything away.
No, not at all.
But it's definitely fits right in that vein with some of my favorite Edgar Wright movies.
2011 was a film of alien throwback movies. That was also the year that had Super 8, which is obviously a Spielberg throwback, and Paul, which also had some of that Spielbergian stuff. I did really respond to Attack the Block. It felt like a Joe Dante who did Gremlins. It felt like a throwback to that era of film. I am a big fan of Attack the Block did not make my list, though. Number 5, I had what you just mentioned, Take Shelter, which is anchored by a great performance by Michael Shannon. I don't think he was nominated for an Academy Award, and that was one of the biggest snubs of that year. Playing a man who may be having hallucinations about the end of the world, and it's the effect it has on his family. Also, Jessica Chastain as his wife in that gives a great performance. Directed by Jeff Nichols, graduate of the University of North Carolina School of the Arts. It's a very, very well-made film, and it has one of those endings that you can interpret multiple ways, and still think about that ending sometimes.
You know, I listened to an interview with him on YouTube talking about these movies, and he said, like, this and his first film, Shotgun Stories, well, his other major release, that is, I don't even think that's right saying, but his feature-length films, he's saying, you know, he wanted to shoot it in places where they didn't have to get a lot of locations. And, you know, when you try and write a movie or you watch a movie, you never take in how many different locations they go to. Like, think of Argo. That must have cost a ton of money and a ton of set design. If you watch a movie like Take Shelter or Shotgun Stories, there's none of that in it. And it is really hard to write a feature-length film where everything happens in basically 3 or 4 different places. So it's an extremely good film and almost would make a very interesting play.
Yeah, it would need a performance like Michael Shannon. If that performance didn't work, the film wouldn't have worked. So what was your number 5, now that we're in the second half of this top 10 list?
Well, I'll take another that you picked. It was The Descendants. Marita and I watched it, and every once in a while, if we're watching a film, and Marita will I'll look over at her if it's a romantic moment and know that she's like, maybe you're going to cry. And she'll look over at me if it's like a moment with dads or something and see me crying, and I'll be like, I'm not crying, I'm just a big, strong man, I'm sweating. And this movie is so good. I mean, I don't know if I could say anything more than you said, other than, you know, George Clooney tends to play the cool, soft-spoken guy, but here it seemed like he actually had to act. Whereas a lot of the times I kind of call people out on just being themselves in a movie or playing the same role. So it makes me really interested to see Nebraska.
Oh, yeah.
The upcoming film from writer-director Alexander Payne. And I think it
has Will Forte
Will
in it.
Forte, you know, and
an actor I'm very mixed on. So
I love Will Forte as a
Okay.
comedian. I don't know about an actor, but
Well, this might be
Alexander
his
Payne
breakthrough.
let's hope so. So Descendants is my number 5.
And it's called Nebraska, but it's set in Montana or something like
I
that.
think they're traveling, like it's a road movie, I think.
Alexander
Might be wrong.
Payne being based out of Omaha originally. So, because Election's set in Omaha and About Schmidt begins in Omaha. So, I always, one of the reasons I like Alexander Payne so much is Iowa doesn't, you can almost claim him because Omaha is right on the border. So, he's kind of a regional filmmaker. My number 4 pick is one I haven't seen since, and I do think it probably is pretty high on this list. It was The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the David Fincher adaptation of the famous novel. I just remember really being entertained by that. It's not a film I would recommend if I'm going by your rubric, just because it's so dark in times. But even from the awesome credit sequence, that just to the performances by Daniel Craig and Rooney Mara, it was a good ride. And it might just be more of an entertainment than an actual ambitious film, but I think it's an example of how a good director can elevate material beyond the pulpy source, having not read the book. But
one of my favorite things about that is Rooney Mara saying it was hard to watch the film with her family because they all wanted to see it.
oh my gosh.
And, if you know anything about these books or movies, there is a couple scenes that you do not want your mom and dad to watch if you were acting, you know, if you were playing the girl with the dragon tattoo.
Yeah, I really hope those sequels get made. The buzz about them has died down because it did not make a lot of money, but it's definitely something I want to see continued adventures of.
Number 4 for me, Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Oh, wow.
This was a film I had the lowest expectations for ahead of time, and then the trailer came out, and I was crazy excited for it. It's one of those movies where you see a film and you're like, okay, they're just going to make a sequel, but I really want to see the sequel. You know, this fits into everything I was looking for: entertaining, a good film, something different. I have issues with the resolution of the movie and maybe the post-credit scenes and all of that, but still being said, I know this is your favorite franchise, right?
Oh yeah,
I
love the Planet of the Apes movies.
Was it considered for your list?
Yeah, it was probably in my top 15. Eventually, like all the popcorn entertainment, maybe that's part of my bias when I make the list. It just slides down the list when it comes to like higher brow entertainment, like 13 Assassins or whatever. It's something that has a little bit more meat to the bone.
Yeah, this reminds me of 2007, or I think it was 2007, where The Bourne Ultimatum came out, and I said, that was the best movie of the year. It's the most watchable movie of the year. It's very taut. It has extremely few, questionable story choices in it. And of course, it wasn't nominated or anything for any major awards. But maybe I think editing was the only
It won
thing.
editing.
Yeah.
I remember that. And I remember the audience cheering like crazy when it was named because people loved that movie.
Yeah, and I still think it might be the best movie that year. And it's funny too because when they do those, what was your favorite movie of the year, like joke sequences, it's never anything that's in maybe these top 10. Maybe Planet of the Apes would make it. I don't think that maybe Warrior would make it. But I think this is the exception to the popcorn rule.
Sure. My number 3 is a film I know you've seen and did not respond to nearly as positive as me. It's the directorial debut of Richard Ayoade. That would be Submarine, a coming-of-age film about a young British man or a young British boy and his romance. And a very, I hate saying Wes Anderson style, but it does have that kind of quirkiness to it, and I just really responded to the way the film was edited and shot. I do think it is a little bit an example of style over substance, but it did resonate with me. I do think he got to the emotional core of what it's like to be a romantically challenged teenager, maybe with parental problems and or with parents who are falling in and out of love or whatnot. And I just remember being really charmed by that, and especially as a directorial debut. He did a lot of television with the BBC, but I was a big fan of Submarine.
That was not on my list, and I did not like it as much as you did, but I broke down everything that wasn't on my list on the just not great enough category, and then good but not great category, and then not good. And it's in the good but not great. So I did enjoy it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as you.
And before I'm done, I want to say I probably would compare it more to Hal Ashby than Wes Anderson, just because it's less conventional to say it's more Harold and Maude than Rushmore.
It didn't seem completely set in a place that never existed.
No.
Like many Wes Anderson films.
It feels set in the 80s more, but even though it's contemporary, it was one of those contemporary 80s. Yeah, like it's out of time a little bit. But go ahead with your number 3.
My number 3, I know, is a major one from you, so I won't say too much. But I had to watch a couple films before the deadline of today's recording, and I snuck in Hugo. I knew I had to see it, and it's my number 3. And this could probably contend seriously for number 1 with Tree of Life or Take Shelter, The Descendants, and Real World Oscar nominations. But it maybe went on a little long, and as much as I enjoyed the things about the film, about filmmaking and George Méliès.
Méliès, yeah.
I've been saying his name so stupidly since I watched it. But that was super interesting and very, makes you want to go back and see those films. Similar to The Artist, makes you want to go watch a bunch of silent movies. At the same time, I'm not a huge fan of movies that talk about movies.
Oh, okay.
It just seems there's too much of that going on in the last few years. So maybe that's why I bumped it down. But it works as a movie for kids, I think, at points, and a movie for adults. Very fun.
My number 2 is a film you mentioned as not making your list, but I maybe I wouldn't recommend it to everyone, but I do think Drive was one of the more interesting films of 2011. I remember seeing it in the theater and it having a rhythm totally different than most movies, especially thrillers, and having a style with the pink fonts and the 80s kind of, it's modern new wave music and whatnot, and just the way it used violence and the performance by Ryan Gosling, it really hypnotized me there in the theater. And I remember seeing it, like, I can't imagine a film being better than this year, and I do have one, but I really liked Drive, and I think it's going to be one of those films like Fight Club that people just keep discovering and loving, and just a cool film, and I can't wait to see what else Nicholas Winding Refn does, and with Ryan Gosling they seem to have paired off. I also am a fan of Winding Refn's Bronson, so I had seen that before Drive, but I think Drive is probably his best film so far.
I have seen Bronson and Drive. If I was doing a list where I didn't have any stupid restraints on recommendations, it probably would be 2 or 3, just because I liked it so much, and Hypnotic is a perfect term. But if you don't want to see a Winding Refn film, I would say, unless you're a film nerd, do not see Valhalla Rising.
I have yet to see that.
Because it has nothing in it for somebody who just wants to have a good time at the movies. Absolutely nothing.
Just grueling, huh?
Number 2, I went with Warrior.
Okay.
I've seen this movie 3 times in the last year, and every time I know how it goes, obviously. If you see a movie on a second viewing, you know how it ends. You know the emotional beats, the manipulations. But I don't care. It still grabs me. It's almost like some people who have a love for Rocky. People compare like boxing and MMA all the time, and MMA's taking over mixed martial arts. And there's just something about the story that transcends the sport. And it almost, at times, makes me think this might be the best sport movie, because the sport is almost a sidebar. Of course, the major climax of the film is a fight, but it's definitely about the characters more than that. So,
And it falls into a lot of the beats, I think, of a sports movie. There's montages in it. There's, obstacles that need to be overridden, but it does all the cliches very well. Like the best you could do that cliche. I think it's a definitive sports movie. It's really good.
It's interesting too, because the year before The Fighter came out, and that got so much praise and obviously won an Academy Award for Christian Bale, but that movie seemed like the sports part of it was tacked on to the meth addict issue. Here it's like the family stuff is extremely well rounded out. And the sports stuff, you could watch it for the MMA part on its own if you're just somebody who enjoys mixed martial arts.
Very well choreographed. It made me, someone who had no interest in the sport, kind of respect it a little bit more. And I think that's what good sports movies do.
Well, since I'll do my number one first.
Okay.
So just because I know that you're the one with the list here and you do it every year, and I don't take as much tact, and I've got some stupid restraints on myself.
Okay.
So I'll just say, you already said 13 Assassins, and that was my number one.
Oh, really?
Because I love movies like this. And it reminded me of House of Flying Daggers that came out, I think, about 6 or 7 years ago. And that, for the longest time, was my favorite, samurai ninja film. And this transcended it. And it's got a certain sense of the Seven Samurais to it. And that's okay, because just the way that it resolves, and it doesn't take an easy out. It goes to the end that it needs to go to at certain points. So, it needs to go to, and not at certain points, it just goes to. So that's my number one. You said everything else needs to be said.
Do you recommend it a lot?
Oh, absolutely. This is, even if I try and push people to go see a film, and I know that it's like Warrior. That is a film anybody can watch, except maybe small children because it's violent.
Yeah.
But I push people to see 13 Assassins because I want them to see something that is different. That it's like, I know this might be a little risk for somebody who is not a film fan, and has to deal with subtitles. But that's okay. This is the movie that I want them to see. So that is my favorite of the year, and it probably would top either my recommended list or my non-recommended list.
It's a very good movie. I have much props for your list. I'm giving you a golf clap right here.
Even though I put some of the better films maybe at the end.
Yeah, it's subjective, man. My number one is Hugo, Martin Scorsese's film about his love of movies set in the 20s in a train station. I saw it in 3D last year, and it's still, to date, the best experience I've had with 3D. I do think he moved the medium forward with his use of 3D in it. I have yet to see it again on home video, so I don't know if it quite holds up as well as that one magical experience with how he equated almost the use of 3D with like an oscilloscope or one of those early filmmaking techniques. He kind of like the 3D actually added something to, I think, the story of how film is made with magic, or how film began with just simple parlor tricks and whatnot. As you said, it's a family film. It actually has a little bit of history. It's actually historically accurate in parts. I'm a big fan of Hugo. And
a couple years ago, when he won for The Departed for Best Movie of the Year, obviously the big thing was Martin Scorsese. He had never won Best Director or Best Film, I believe.
Yeah,
both.
He hadn't won either.
Yeah, and this came out, and if it wasn't for the artist having such a political push at the end to win, I really think this should have taken it.
It's so much better than The Artist, and being a film set in similar eras, Hugo's a little bit earlier, and being a movie about movies, I think if The Artist didn't exist and have the Weinsteins backing it, I think Hugo should have been the favorite for last year, because if they like to really pat themselves on the back with the Oscars, and yeah, they do. This is a movie about the true love of movies and not The Artist, which felt more like a pastiche to me, a very good pastiche, but it felt more like we're just adopting this style to tell basically a remake of Sound of Music, or not Sound of Music, Singing in the Rain.
Yeah, so interesting. Are there any things that you would have kicked off my list?
I don't know if I'd kick off anything from your list. The one film I did see again this year that I'm like, I kind of wish I had put in my 2011 list is Moneyball.
I had that on there and had to take it off.
That is a very good movie. And that every time I think I've seen it 3 times now, and it's better with each viewing. So I think I maybe would have bumped maybe The Descendants or War Horse off. I would have kept Warrior on because that's my weird 10 spot. But Moneyball is a very good movie. I wish I had a place on my list for.
I've had a hard time recommending it, though. That's my problem, because I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to watch it with Marita, but I didn't know what she'd get out of it at all, except for the father-daughter stuff. But
it's funny.
That's
the thing
good at
that
times.
you forget. It's funny, and it's got that crackling Sorkin script.
And as
to
much
it.
as I don't like Jonah Hill, he is definitely good in this movie. I don't say I don't like him, but I have not found something that made me love him. Oh, can I say one last thing? Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Oh, yeah.
This was on the edge, but I remember when we saw it that the casting was an issue, because you pointed it out to me as soon as the film was over. It's like, well, you knew this is where this was going.
Yeah.
There's only 2 famous people in the movie.
And I've seen interviews with one of the filmmakers since where they say, well, it's not a whodunit, so we didn't care so much about hiding the identity. I'm like, yes, it is a whodunit. You spend the whole movie trying to figure out who that's the plot of who the leak is. But
that's the difference between a miniseries and a movie, is that in a miniseries, maybe you can get into the convoluted politics of the time and the spying and espionage, and I don't know.
I did like that movie, though, with the exception that you mentioned, and I do hope they make it. I think there was just news this week that they're going to sequelize it eventually, so bully on them. Well, we've talked enough about our best films of last year, literally 2011. When we come back, we'll talk about what's coming up in theaters for the end of this year and wrap this show up. What's coming up in theaters? Quite a few movies out on Christmas Day, including Quentin Tarantino's Django Unchained, Les Miserables, and Parental Guidance, one I know you've been looking forward to, the return of Billy Crystal to the silver screen.
My movie of the year by far. I think he even plugged it in the Oscars last year.
Oh, he did. I remember that.
I
was like, wow, he's promoting a film about a year away. Also in limited release is West of Memphis, another film about the West Memphis 3, after the 3 Paradise Lost films. There must still be more. But that won't be in our area. Next week, I think we will review Les Miserables. There is a possibility it will be a Django double feature. We will review Django eventually, I'm pretty sure. Pat, how can people get a hold of us?
Well, you can hit us up on email or Twitter. Both have the same handle, FilmcastWOAC. If it's an email, filmcastwoac@gmail.com. Leave us a audio review of a movie. As soon as you step out, you want to tell somebody your thoughts, hey, tell us. It's 515-412-0737. And of course, if you leave a comment on the website, we'll put it in the show. If you're a friend of ours and you leave a comment on your Facebook wall, we'll put it in the show. Anything.
We will, yes.
So plenty of ways to get in touch with us.
Well, thank you very much, Pat, for allowing me to be in your basement and record a podcast. It was a lot of fun.
Yep. Everybody enjoy the holidays.
Yes. Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. Bye-bye.
That's a wrap.